Welcome everyone to the 2020 Virtual Land Conference sponsored by Land.com Network. I greatly appreciate everyone, your willingness to attend this new format that was dealt to us, and I think we're all looking for a few aces that we can take out of the next couple days. So my name is Kyle Hansen, and I'm the 2020 National President of Realtors Land Institute. Thank you all again for joining us today. While we are sad that we cannot have our event previous planned in San Antonio, we are grateful that you have been able to turn this event into a virtual conference, allowing even more people to join us and participate. This is our 14th annual conference, and it continues to be the leading event for land brokers to make deals and learn about the hottest trends in the industry. Of course, this event is not possible without our partners. Thank you to Land.com Network for being our major sponsor for this virtual event. And thank you to all of our partners that you see on your screen for the support, which is vital to our organization. For those of you at home that may be unfamiliar with Realtors Land Institute, let me tell you that RLI is the voice of land and the go-to organization for land real estate professionals and all things related to land.
Our next speaker is ALC Bob Turner with Southern Properties out of Memphis, Tennessee. Bob served as the 2016 National President of RLI. He is a proud realtor and has been a land broker for over 37 years. Bob is considered one of NAR's realtor experts on qualified opportunity zones and even shared the stage with President Trump at last May's realtor legislative meetings. Bob has been an active member of RLI since 1996, earning his ALC designation in 2006. In addition to serving as RLI president, he has also served as the RLI representative to the NAR Executive Committee, as the RLI Tennessee chapter president, and as the chair of the 2012 National Land Conference. He personally operates farms, mobile home parks, residential and commercial developments, and brokers land in Tennessee, Mississippi, and Arkansas. If you know Bob, you know he is the same guy if he is working with his Angus cattle at home, driving a tractor at the farm, hunting at flyway farms, barbecuing with family and friends, meeting with customers about land, meeting with elected officials about legislation, speaking in front of a room of people, or representing fellow realtors across the country. Bob works with the same passion every day. Work smart, work hard, and get something done to help make things better. Bob, now's the time to please tell us about opportunity zones. Bob, do we have you on? Oh,
you got me?
I got you. And just to share your PowerPoint screen, if you have your PowerPoint open on your computer, once you have that open, you'll want to click on the share button. And that should open up a new window showing one of the icons should be the PowerPoint. And if you click that and then share, it should share your screen.
All right, let's see if we can get this to work. Here we go. All right, do you have it now?
We see it now. And then if you go up to slideshow and click play from start, it should start it from the in the slideshow view. Do you see that?
Start. I don't see that.
Okay.
Can you share or
let me see.
Stop video, remote control, more?
Let's try this again. You know, I'm going to stop the sharing for just a moment. Okay, and then if you could click share again. And then once that new window pops up, do you happen to see your PowerPoint in the slideshow view?
Yes,
If you click on that and then click share.
All right.
Okay, let's try. And then do you see up at the top the icon that says
New
in
share?
the PowerPoint, play from start?
I don't see anything that says play from start. I got a new share button. Should I do that?
It's in the PowerPoint area. Yep, play from start. Do you see
Play
that?
from current slide, play from start. Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Click that.
There you go.
Okay, there you go. You're
There we
good
go.
to go. Thanks, Bob.
All right. So I'm live now.
You're live. Yep.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody's doing good and maintaining their social distancing policies that we have in our interesting times. Let's talk about opportunity zones and opportunities within AR and as a commercial liaison. I was asked by John Smavey, our national president, to come in and kind of head up commercial almost 2 years ago now when he asked me. And so last year was a very interesting year. We started out, let's see. So we started out, let's talk about how we got to where we are. Well, wait a minute. How do we go back? There we go. Now we're getting there. Figuring out how it works. So NAR is very involved in all parts of the government. I want to explain to you how we got into opportunity zones. Joe Ventrone works for NAR in Washington, D.C. He is the person that interacts directly with the White House on daily basis. He talks to them about policies going on, rules they're making, how can we help them. So we're constantly interacting on many different levels of what's going on in the White House and what's going on in our government. And so it came up that opportunity zones were moving forward and it had passed, and we got an invitation to come to the White House. Well, Bob Goldberg got it, and he said, I don't know anything about opportunity zones, send Bob. So that's how I got to go to the White House. We had the conference there where they announced the rules and talked about all of it. It was 120 people in the room. I was the only practitioner in the room. Everyone else worked for some type of the government, whether it was a local planning, whether it was state planning, state economic development, but I was the only person that actually performed and operated real estate in the room. So I kind of had an advantage on everybody, and it showed up pretty quick. As they started going through all the rules and everything, they had Secretary Mnuchin there going through the rules. They had Larry Kudlow there, Secretary Carson, the president spoke. And as they went through the rules, they started talking about things. And of course, y'all know me well enough that I raised my hand. And I asked Secretary Mnuchin what happened to home ownership in the rules. And he kind of looked at me and he kind of looked around the room and kind of stammered a little bit. And he looked back at me and he said, I don't have an answer for you. And I said, well, without home ownership, we don't have much in America. We got to figure out how to make this. So I kind of got attention by saying that. And then we had breakout sessions and we got into the weeds about what opportunity zones are. And once again, being the only practitioner, I could answer the questions that nobody else in the room could answer. So we had a long day of 6 hours talking through what we do in the field as realtors, as we know how to do. And it was a long day, but it was a very intriguing and an interesting and humbling experience to be in the White House and people listening to you about what we do every day that we take for granted that we know what we're doing. So that's how we got involved. Then in May, y'all saw the first picture, President Trump agreed to come to NAR and speak to our realtors. We asked every president for years to come speak to us. Most all of them have come. One or two haven't. But President Trump, being in the real estate business, absolutely wanted to come. During that week, 2 of us got selected to speak on stage, and he wanted me to talk about opportunity zones. Then in May, after May, then we had a conference in Washington, D.C., where it was a round table. They invited me to speak on behalf of the realtors with the Department of Commerce, Department of HUD, governors, different people from around the country. It was about 17 of us in the room talking about opportunity zones and what was going on with them and what we needed to do. It was very, very straightforward conversation. Governor of Mississippi was in there and we started talking about what we were doing with opportunity zones and how we were going to make the world better by doing this. What opportunity zones is designed to do is take areas that have been walked past for many years, no development, the areas that need help, the areas that need changing and need home ownership and need new business and new opportunities. It was created for those zones. And so then at our leadership summit, the next thing, NAR got involved and started giving away grants for local commercial and state commercial to have meetings and talk about it and educate everybody. So that's how we kind of got started. So now the reality of opportunity zones. Building cities requires everything. It requires industrial, commercial, housing, and having a workforce to work in all of that. That's why opportunity zones create all across the border where we can do apartments, industrial buildings, farm operations, affordable housing for people. That's what it's designed for. There's a huge housing shortage across America, very, very severe. Affordable housing in most states doesn't exist anymore. There's a lot of reasons about that, and we'll talk about that. Job shortages in these areas, opportunity zones, it's hard for these people to get jobs. There's a lot of lack of education, a lot of opportunities, so there's job shortages there. Low-income housing and neighborhoods are deteriorating every day across America. They don't have the money to keep them up. They don't have the workforce to do it. There's a lot of reasons why. Home ownership and neighborhood ownership. If we don't have people living in the neighborhoods that own property there, that care about it, you know as well as I do, tenants do not always take care of their property. So there's a big discrepancy there. Development costs and zoning regulations, very onerous across the country. We have so many costs just by getting the privilege to develop or the privilege to get the right zoning. There's so many costs involved in it. Infrastructure. We've got the worst infrastructure across the nation that needs to be upgraded in so many ways. I just wish Congress would get together and do something about it. Then we've got an issue of nothing in my backyard that a lot of us deal with. It used to be, you know, you could go to zoning and you'd fight with everybody, but you've got areas across the country now that they don't want anything built. There are cities across in some areas of the country that the citizens are electing people to stop any kind of development. They support them and get them elected. There's a city in South Carolina that they have stopped all development. You can't tear your house down and build a new house. You can't tear a corner store down that's fallen down and build something new there. They've stopped completely. They don't want anything built. Nothing in my backyard. That's a big problem. So now let's get into the weeds about opportunity zones. The number one thing you need to know, very simply, it is just tax law. Don't go any further than that. It is just tax law. If you can build it and it has income and expenses, it fits the opportunity zone. And the main important thing is you don't have to ask anybody in the government permission to do this. When we were at the White House, they were talking about reporting and how you keep up with who's doing opportunity zones. And there's a gentleman in the White House, Dan Kowalski. He's with the IRS, and he's head of this program from the tax law side. And he kept telling everybody it's just tax law. You can't do that. You'd ask him another, no, you can't do that. It's tax law. It doesn't fit the tax law. Then the other part is the people that wanted to do this, that got it passed, said we need reporting. We need to know who's doing what and what they're doing and how they're doing. And he goes, no, you don't get to see their tax return. You don't get to see this tax law in their tax returns. We are not doing reporting. They had put it in the bill and the IRS took it out. So there is no permission you have to get. How many times in a city do you get to go do something without asking somebody's permission? So this opportunity zone is available for everybody. So the rules were released in April. That was the second set of rules came out in April. And they were considered to be final rules. They were not the final rules, but everybody was considering them that way because it was taking so long to get the rules out. So it was passed in 17, this is in 18, and going into 19 when they were releasing these rules. And everybody's trying to figure out what it's about. What can we do? How do we set it up? How do we get started on this? So everybody was reading these rules. Every accountant across the country and lawyers were reading these rules and asking questions, but nobody had the full answers because everybody didn't completely understand the program in the administration. And they expected an update. Well, to make a long story short, in December, they released, this past December of 19, they released the final rules and everybody finally started throwing money at it. When we were at the White House and Secretary Mnuchin was talking about the rules and everybody was anticipating those rules, that very day, as I used it in my speech, it was like a faucet being turned on. There's so much money wanting to get into this. There were hundreds of millions of dollars, even billions of dollars, looking for a place to invest in opportunity funds because it's a great tax benefit. So we got the rules finally set up. All the money in an opportunity fund must come from gain money, 1031 a gain, stock sale, exchange money, any kind of money that has a gain to it that fits the opportunity zone. If you can put, and the question is, can you put your own money in there? You can, but you're not going to get any benefit from it. You're just putting your money in there. So all your money from 1031 exchanges, stock sales, art sales, anything that you've got a tax bill from the IRS on gain money fits in this. So there's three main benefits to the opportunity zones: a deferral, a reduction, and an exclusion. The first one, we got to go back a little bit because this started and we've already missed one deadline, but you had to, if you put your money in from a capital gain, you're going to get a deferral of that tax bill on that capital gain. You can get up to 10% reduction of that capital gain if held in the first 5 years, and a 15% reduction capital gain if the investment is held 7 years. So we've missed 5 years, 1 year of this already, because December 31st, 2019 was the deadline for the first deduction. You can't get 7 years now, you can only get 5 years. So the main reduction, if you put money in today, is 10%. If you put money in before December 31 of 2019, you could get 15% reduction. Your tax bill on a gain, let's say it's a 20% deduction. You got $1 million you're going to put in a 20% deduction. If you got 15% deduction on that, you're going to save $15,000. So you didn't lose much on this. So you got a $200,000 tax bill at a 20% deduction, and 10% of that is $10,000, 5% is $5,000. So now that you're past 2019, you can only get the $10,000 deduction. The exclusion is, and this is the big part of the opportunity zones, if you put your money into a development and you leave it in there for 10 years, there is zero capital gains or any kind of tax on the money you make on that investment. So let's back up for just a second and talk through this. You got $1 million investment you're putting in. You're going to get a 10% deduction of your tax bill. So that's saving you $20,000. In 2026, you have to pay that tax bill. So you got to have the money to pay that tax bill. So let's say it's $180,000. You got to write a check for that. But you're still in the investment of the fund. And if you leave it in there for 10 years, there is zero tax from there forward. So all the gain you get to keep, tax-free. So let's explain how we get into this. A QOF, Qualified Opportunity Fund, is what has to be set up. That is the mechanism by which you invest into an opportunity zone fund. So I'm going to use an example of one of my developments I'm doing so you'll understand this a little better, and we'll go through this further into the slide presentation. You can take an LLC that I own in this property. I can file a one-sheet form to the IRS and turn it into a QOF, a Qualified Opportunity Fund. All the investment money you're putting in there goes into that QOF. It doesn't go into the original LLC, it goes into the QOF. And you can go out and raise funds. So I could ask everybody on here to put in $500,000 and put it all into that same QOF, and we all get the same benefits of that QOF. It doesn't come into my LLC, it comes into the QOF that I've created. You must hold at least 90% of the assets in the qualified opportunity property within a zone. Opportunity funds are self-certifying. You just fill out the form. You don't have to go hire everybody to do all this. The 90% asset requirement will be assessed via assets valued reported in the O funds applicable financial statements for the year. So you're making, you're filing out forms every year, just like tax forms with this. But the bases are you create the fund, you put the money in, you buy the land, you do the development. That's how you get started. You can do businesses in this. A business is a much more complicated transaction, but I'll give you an example of one that that went on that we talked about in the White House and in meetings that the president always used was in Vicksburg, Mississippi, about a sawmill and what this does. So business shut down in Vicksburg, Mississippi. It was the sawmill. It was the largest industry in town. And the town basically dried up. People moved out. There were no jobs. The grocery stores were shutting down. The houses were empty. There was no business there. The governor of Mississippi convinced a friend of his in Alabama who had sold a sawmill to take his gain money and come to Vicksburg, Mississippi, buy the sawmill, hire the people back to work, retool the whole sawmill, and all the money put into it was through the qualified opportunity zone, creating a business. Within 6 months, by him hiring all the people back, the town started turning around. The grocery stores started open. Now they're building new houses there. The town has completely changed just because this main business was put back into order. That's what this opportunity zone is all about. It's recreating things within towns to make them continue to be active and have jobs and have money flowing through town. So that's what it is. But in a business, you could do hemp businesses. There's so many different things you can do, and we'll talk about that a little further too. But 70% of your tangible property, owned or leased, is in a qualified opportunity zone. And what if it straddles a line? So what does a line mean? There are 8,700 opportunity zones all across America. These were picked by the governors of the states in conjunction with the cities. They laid out where these zones were in some type of method that most people can't even explain, but they picked the areas that needed development and had been looked over. And they laid out these zones based on census tracts. And the governors then applied to the federal government to put the zones in, and the federal government picked so many in each state. Well, there's a total of 8,700 opportunity zones, and they're all on the map. There's several places you can look it up. IRS.gov is the main site, but there's a lot of others you can go look them up. You can look them up on RPR. We've got a full site on there for opportunity zones. So you've got to fit everything into these zones. You just can't pick a spot and go do what you want to do. You got to be in a zone. So in that zone, let's say that you own a piece of property that's half of it's on one side of the street and half of it's on the other, but the line is the street. Can you use both sides of the street in the opportunity zone? If you fit under these guidelines, you can do that. You got to have tangible property owned or leased and if it straddles it, you can do it. If it's by comparison, this cost is greater than that of the property outside of the qualified opportunity zone, and they are contiguous, all the property is considered to be in the qualified opportunity zone. So you can do that. So in qualified opportunity fund, the investments are made there. They may be partnerships, they may be corporations, there may be different ways of doing it. There are large firms and large lawyer firms and funds that have been created across the country where you can invest with them and they'll invest in the property. Or you can do it yourself. The property must hold at least 90% of its assets in the property within a zone. O funds are certifying via the IRS form, which is filed with federal income filings. 90% of the asset will be assessed via asset values reported to the O funds applicable financial statements. Oh, we're going the wrong way here. Can you invest non-gain money? Yes, but you don't get any benefit out of it, so don't do it. Is the program permanent? No, it ends in 2028. This is a set from 2018 to 2028, a 10-year program. The investments can stay there through 2047. So if you go that 10 years and you still own it, you can keep getting the benefits all the way through 2047. So let's say you build an apartment complex. In 10 years, you can sell it if you want to, or you just hold on to it and you can go all the way up to 2047 and still get the benefits. So it's a long term. Working capital. There's a safe harbor. If you need working capital in it, you can, for the Opportunity Fund investments and Opportunity Zone, business that acquire, construct, and rehabilitate tangible business property, including real property, cash and cash equivalents qualify as a business property for up to 31 months. Some questions on the front end were, well, if I buy something and I'm getting ready to start it and I can't get it done because of zoning or can't get it done because of loans or whatever it is, do I get some leeway? That's where this 31 months comes in. They put a timeline on it, but the IRS said we can extend that anytime you have a real issue such as zoning or the funding is held up. So that's what this working capital is about. Problems with opportunity zones. Home ownership was the biggest thing because we don't have home ownership. Let's say we build an apartment complex in a low income area and it's not being kept up with well. After 10 years, as the governor of Mississippi said, we're going to have cars on blocks and windows broken out. We got the same stuff we had before. So home ownership is very key to this. And without home ownerships in our neighborhood, they just deteriorate. Nobody cares. We brought that up to the White House, and shortly after I was back in Memphis, the White House called me and said, "You're the only person talking about home ownership across America." And I kind of laughed and I said, "Oh, come on, there's a lot of people talking about this." And they said, "No, nobody's not. So we want to talk to you." So they asked me what we should do. And I said, "Well, there's a lot of ways you can get around it, but you need home ownership. If you don't have it, you're not really going to make progress." And we talked a little bit and I gave them a way of doing it. And they said, "Well, we kind of like that. Can you write that up?" I said, "Yeah, I can write it up. What are you going to do with it?" And they said, "Well, we're going to put it back through Congress." So I wrote up a proposal, and the proposal basically is create a business in an opportunity zone that develops lots for single family houses. That's one way of getting a couple of years down the road. Then after that, you do a business to build the houses. And that gets you a little further down the line. So that maybe carries you out to 4 years. Well, it's a 10-year program. So then you'd have to lease purchase the houses for another 6 years to get out to 10 years. So that's kind of the program I laid out for them, but I added a lot of stipulations in there that said, you're going to develop low-income housing or workforce housing. You're going to build workforce housing. You're going to pre-qualify the people through your state, THDA is ours, Tennessee Housing Development Agency, is what I used as our basis. They make first-time home buyer loans. So our THDA would come in and qualify all the buyers and put them in a lease purchase, and 10% of their rent would be kept into a fund separate from the developer for their down payments. So every month, 10% was building up in a fund, so they had a down payment to go in the house. They would also teach them how to own a house and how to take care of a house and how to budget and how to live in a home ownership, not just to be in a renter, and carry them through that next 6 years. And then after the 10 years, you would close them out in long-term home ownership loans done by the Tennessee Housing Development Agency. So that was the program I wrote up for them and sent to the White House. And just recently, at one of the places I was speaking, one of the gentlemen there is involved with the White House. He came up to me and he said, "Have you heard about your program?" And I said, "No, I hadn't heard anything." And he said, "Well, it's moving through Congress." And I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, they really like it. And I think we'll get something done on it, but you're not going to get your 10-year, you're not going to get 5 years. I'd asked for 5 years so we could get it done in 5 years, change the rule. And the only way it can be changed is through Congress." They said, "We like the program, but you're not going to get your 5 years. So hopefully we will get something in there for home ownerships." That's the solutions we're working on. So let's use Millington, Tennessee as an example. This is where I'm developing multifamily and single family, and it is an opportunity zone. If you look at the top of this page, there's a pink kind of U-shape, upside down U that says Millington in it. That's where my property is located. We're developing this piece of ground that you see. There's 21 acres on the left side, and then there's lots laid out on the right side. We own 45 acres there. On the right side is the single family lots that will be 65 by 125. There'll be 71 lots there. And then on the left side, we're going to do 247 units of apartments. So we establish the QUAF. We file the form with the IRS. That's where the money goes in. This is the residential lots. And you should say, how does this fit into the opportunity zone? So these lots will be developed and they will be sold. We own the whole property, the whole 45 acres. This is 24 acres of it. We develop these lots. We'll have about 2.2 million in the development of these lots. We have them all sold to one builder. And we'll take that money and roll it into the other side where the apartments are going in. The reason we are in Millington, it's called a resilient product. You see all the green in the middle of this, that's the $30 million drainage correction park system that they are doing in Millington that is federally funded. Our property sits, there's a green bike line that goes north and south through the middle of this picture. Our property sits right to the left of this and joins that floodway and an interstate there. So we join the new park. That park will have baseball fields and soccer fields and walking trails and bike trails. And it goes for 5 miles all along there. And the main bike lane going south runs right across the front of our property. So we tie right into that major park that we're next door to. Millington is the home of the Millington Naval Base, where there's over 7,000 active people on that base and over 11,000 on it every day. It's right across the Resilient from our property. They're building a new hospital there. There's a lot of things going on out there, but that project changes the whole town because now it's got a huge outdoor entertainment area that they've never had. Oh, not too far. Oh. There you go. Get back to the right spot here. There we go. All right, so raising capital and structuring loans. The money and land go into the QUAF, as I've said. You create your own QUAF. Money has to stay in the QUAF, although you can buy and sell assets in that QUAF. So what does that mean? All the money goes in, we build this apartment complex and we decide we want to sell it. We can sell it. The money has to stay in the QUAF and we can go buy another asset within that QUAF and keep doing and still maintain that 10 years staying in the QUAF. Land cost, development, and building 247 units with amenities, clubhouse, walking trails, water park, bike trails tied to our development. The estimated cost is $26 million. The capital needs minimum of 25% equity. Most investors want a 22% internal rate of return on their investment. So as we're raising money, putting this all together, we're going to put in about $6 million of equity, and we're borrowing the rest of the money to build the apartments. We use the money coming off the single family lots as part of our equity that we roll into there. This is sitting beside the single family lots. There's 247 units laid out there. We've got a clubhouse, pool, walking trails. Right along the front of this is that main bike line that's going to be put in. When we were laying all this out, we didn't realize that this was going right across the front of our property. Why Millington? You heard me say a minute ago. The VA outpatient hospital is a $20 million surgical center. It's going to be literally within walking distance from our apartments and our houses. It's a top aviation school. The old naval base airport was given to the city of Millington, and now it is a top aviation school for University of Memphis students learning to fly and be FedEx pilots and all the other major airlines. Remodel of the main hangar is almost complete. President Trump flew into that airport and held a rally where they've remodeled that main hangar. Grants for infrastructure are in place, and they're fixing to do all new infrastructure along the Navy Road, which is the main road through town, for 5 miles, new sidewalks, new drainage, new paving, new landscaping. They just announced a mixed use of $100 million development going in the north side of town with new industries moving in around it, yet to be announced. There's 2 Fortune 500 companies that are looking at Millington. Millington is a size 10,000 person town. They have more jobs than they have people living in that town. There's new commands going into the naval base. There's over 7,000 jobs on the base. There's another 1,500 coming from 3 different divisions within the military system. There's new restaurants, there's new housing, there's a brand new school system. They've got a baseball stadium there that they've got a new owner and they're remodeling it. So there's a lot of things going on in Millington. The single family lots, 71 lots. The homes will be 1,800 to 2,000 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath brick homes. They'll have an HOA with covenants and restrictions. The lots are sold to D.R. Horton, the largest home builder in America. He's already building in that area. The Barry's Oaks residential rental units. We'll have 1-bedroom units, 670 square feet, 2-bedroom, 830 to 1,000 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 1,170 square feet. The rental rates will range from 800 to 1,200. All the amenities you've heard me talk about, they're all right beside us. And we'll have water park and pool and everything within ours. Keep going the wrong way here. Okay, what's reality? We talked about the $1 million capital gains for land sale or stocks. We invested before if you put your money in before 12/31/2019, you owe 20% capital gains on $1 million. Capital gains bill would be $200,000 and you'd have to pay that by 2026. If you left your money in for 5 years, you get a 10% reduction or $20,000. You leave it in 7 years, you get an additional $10,000. If you leave the money in for 10 years, no tax. That's the big hook, no tax. If we already passed December 19, you lost that second 5% of 10,000. If you invest, you only lose that. And that's the only thing you lost by that time frame. There was a lot of issue about we've got to have our money in by 12/31/19, and everybody finally realized it wasn't that big a deal. Some of the issues encountered on the front end already. Investors, by not knowing all the rules, were being very picky about where they were investing. They were cherry picking the right deals. There's a huge deal in St. Louis called the Foundry. There's like $400 million was put in it because it was a deal that they knew was going to work. There's another one in North Carolina. Many of y'all are familiar with where Chapel Hill, North Carolina is, where the University of North Carolina basketball team is. That's in an opportunity zone. You'd say, why is that in one? They picked some of the areas so that there were good stuff to go along with the bad stuff. So as they started the good stuff, it would flow across the street into the bad areas that hadn't been developed. So the best opportunity zones were getting the first money. The best market, multifamily, mixed use, where the first money went. High wealth pooling of large money to control large developments was put in place by multiple people across the country. There, at last I saw on one of the sites, there was 230 different funds you could invest into, and all of them had a specific target they were doing. And so you could look those up. Investors were shying away from the suburban markets. That was one of the problems I had with my development in Millington. It's in a suburb. It's 15 minutes from downtown Memphis, but it was still in a suburb. They're willing to invest in Memphis, but they weren't in Millington. There's a $1 billion project in downtown Memphis, literally 15 minutes away, that they put hundreds of millions of dollars in, and they wouldn't put $20 million in Millington because it was a suburban market. And you ask why? The why is that the investors, as you know, when you invest with your people, they want to put their money in and put it in play for so many years, whether it's 5 years or 8 years or 10 years or longer term than that. The opportunity zone, if you want to look at it from a 10-year window, if you invest today and your investment is designed to make money, that's the reason they're doing it. It's not philanthropy, it's to make money and get the tax benefits. So if you've got a good project you put money in and it's doing well and you want to know that you can sell it in 10 years, you're going to pick the spot where you know where the investments are selling and what kind of return you can get, what cap rates they are, and you know in 10 years you can sell that. Suburban market, they're not sure they can sell that. So that was the problem. Market studies. Your market studies in a bigger market, you can get all the market studies you want. You go to a suburban market, there's not much comps there. So that's another negative that they don't know, can they sell it in 10 years and get a 6 cap rate or a 5 cap rate or whatever it may be at that time. So now let's talk about ideas for opportunity zone development, single family development, rental homes for the whole subdivision. Instead of building an apartment complex, you build a whole subdivision of rental houses. I've got friends that own whole subdivisions. It's like any other management, but yet you've got, instead of scattered homes all over town you're trying to manage, you've got one subdivision. Works great. Workforce housing, that's the greatest need in America. Whatever it is, whether it's townhouses or rental houses or apartments, we need workforce housing. It's hard to do, y'all, because you've got so much cost on infrastructure and fees and privilege costs that it's hard to build workforce housing when you have somebody that can only pay $600 or $700 a month. Where are you going to build something new that you can rent out for that? It's hard to do. Government facilities, offices, maintenance shops. When we were sitting in the White House, there were mayors sitting there going, we're sitting on opportunity zone land. We need new buildings. We need a new courthouse. We need a new maintenance shop, whatever it may be. And they talked about how we could get that done. And 2 or 3 of the mayors just kept hammering that they had to have this. And the IRS guy says, you can't do this. You can't do it. And there was a gentleman sitting next to me. He said, I can do it. And I said, well, tell him. And so he did. And what he did was he said, okay, it's on city land. Lease me that land and I'll custom build your building for you and I will lease it to you for 10 years and then I can sell it to you. And the IRS, Dan Kowalski, was sitting at the end of the table and he looked around for a minute, thought for a minute, and everybody's kind of looking at him like they didn't know what he's going to say. He said, you're right, you can do that. So if you've got a city that needs government facilities and you want to do an investment, go build them a maintenance shop for $5 million and lease it to them for 10 years and then sell it to them. That's a perfect, it's like the VA hospital. That's the way it's being done. So the only thing the IRS guy said was, that's perfect, you can do that, but you can't preset the price. It's got to be market rate when you sell it to them. Medical marijuana processing facilities. There's a lot of that going on across the country. You could build those, buy a piece of land, but you've got to improve it. So build a medical marijuana processing facility, do a hemp processing facility. Warehousing. I was in down in next to the border in Texas, and they were talking about all the warehouse facilities that they needed right at the border because all the stuff was coming in. They didn't have a place to put it. Well, they had an opportunity zone, and some friends of fellow realtors down there were working on it, and they already had it planned out, and they're building buildings down there for warehousing, literally backing up to the border. Create a business in an opportunity zone. The sawmill example. You can create any kind of business in it as long as you are doing business in that zone, and you can put workers in there. Mobile home parks. That's the ultimate affordable housing model. Design and develop a mobile home park. Rent it out for affordable housing. Almost anything that is income producing and has tax write-offs works in the opportunity zone. Land, our favorite thing we always want to do. You can do it, but you have to improve it. Whether you put a cattle feedlot on it, or you put hemp processing or marijuana processing or a hog farm or something, you've got to put some type of business on there for it to qualify. You can't just buy land and let it sit there for 10 years and it work in the opportunity zone. So these are ideas to consider. Wait, there we go, last slide. All right, so questions, everybody? Thoughts?
Hey, Bob, we do have a few questions that have come over for you. To start off the Q&A portion, I'll start with this question from one of our attendees. He says, we have an opportunity zone in northeastern Nevada, and it doesn't include several small communities that are less than 1,400 people and which have either I-80 or US Highway 93 passing through. The zone boundary pretty much is just rangeland. How do you go about changing the boundary of an established opportunity zone?
Short answer is you can't. They will not change the zone lines at all. They are what they are. They've talked about it in many different ways. That this question comes up everywhere I go, and the answer is you can't do it. They're not going to change it. They are what they are.
Now on to our next question. We have an attendee asking, they are listing a 230-acre property in Northwest Arkansas in an opportunity zone. How and who do they market the property to?
Well, you can list it just like you want to do it, but here's what I suggest you do, and this is what we told a lot of the realtors when we were in Washington, D.C. Go to you yourself, the realtor that has it listed. Go to the city, to the planning commission or the zoning commission, whoever you want to go to, and go to them and say, what do you need there? Not do you want, what do you want? What do you need there? You, the realtor who's listing it, become the person that puts the whole deal together. Figure out what's needed there, what's needed for the community, whether it's warehousing, whether it's housing, whatever it is. You become the developer person that puts it all together. Go find an engineer that'll work with you, find an architect that'll work with you, find a developer that'll work with you, get the city officials, the community, and everybody in the room at one time and say, okay, we got this piece of land. Let's design something on it and get it ready for somebody to come in and develop. You take that process and you put it in your listing and you put it out to the public and say, we've got it set up for you, bring you money and you can start building. We've already got the zoning ready to be approved. We've got everything in place, where the infrastructure is coming from, all the designs. So you create your development, and what you're doing is you're selling the land with that development. And as many of y'all have heard me say, don't leave yourself out. Keep yourself in that deal and say to the owner, I'm going to put all this together for you. I want a longer term listing. I want a piece of the pie for the new development as an ownership portion for putting this all together. And then you've got something really to sell other than just a piece of dirt. That's what I recommend.
Thank you, Bob. As for our next question, the attendee is asking, could a qualified improvement be taking vacant ag land to pecan orchards?
No, it's not a depreciable asset on the tax. Once again, it's just tax law. It's got to be buildings that have income and expenses that you can write off. I don't know that you can write off pecan trees. You may be able to, but I don't think you can.
Okay, as for our next question, attendee is asking for ideas to consider for opportunity zone developments. Older city or town with a struggling main street, improve historical building and putting them back into a workable business.
Excellent opportunity. You take any small town, the first person that does it, everybody thinks they're crazy, and then all of a sudden, once that one person does one building, the next one, and then the next one, they all start coming back, and all of a sudden you've got a downtown mixed use. You can put living upstairs, you can put your real estate office there and become the catalyst to put the rest of them into town. A restaurant comes in, a coffee shop comes in. I know multiple towns that are like this across the South that it just changes the whole downtown. And that's a great opportunity because you can get those buildings pretty cheap. And once again, go sell that idea to other people to come down there and help them put it together. You can create your own business in this opportunity zone doing that.
Thank you, Bob. We have a few more questions that have come over. One question is from one of the attendees. They're asking, what is the approximate value increase of the land because of it being an opportunity zone?
There have been a lot of studies around, and some of them have shown as much as 20% increase in value in sales. You can go to RPR. They've got some background information on that that they've been studying as we go along. I don't know where it is, but Emily Line, if somebody wants to email me or text me or whatever, I can get that information for you. But there is some increase in value depending on what's going on around there and what they've done.
Thank you. And then as for our last question that came up, and feel free, if anyone has any other questions, please do so by submitting your questions in the Q&A box. And as for this one from one of our attendees, they just wanted to make sure they heard you correctly. They're asking, did you say that they can do land development and sell off lots, and it qualifies as long as they keep the money in the fund, not necessarily in the property.
Yes, it does. It's a bit, you're creating a business of developing lots. You're selling the lots. The problem is you got to have enough to carry you through 10 years, or you got to have some way to move into something else, whether it's building houses or rental houses or something to keep you going for 10 years. Because you know, it's typically in less than 2 years, you've developed the lots and they're ready for sale. But yes, it does qualify.
Wonderful. I have another question that's come in. One of our attendees has asked, they just listed a single family 3 to $265,500. What does the opportunity zone mean to this owner since the property is in a zone?
Well, when you get into houses like that and you're doing single houses, you've got to figure out, you've got to invest at least, I think the number's right, 50% of the value of improvements. So if you paid $200,000 for the house, you've got to spend $100,000 on it for it to qualify. So let's say that what they're talking about doing is flipping houses or redoing houses and selling them. You've got to spend 50% of what you pay for it to qualify in the opportunity zone for that type of investment. If the person owns it and is just selling it, there's no value from so the owner, they list it for the owner and the owner sells it. He doesn't get anything for being in an opportunity zone just because he had it before it started. That's not any benefit to him.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Let me see if we have any other questions. I don't see any more questions that have come over. Let me see, let me check the chat.
This is a big program, y'all, and it's got a lot of moving parts to it. Do you have another question?
No, I just checked the chat box, and I think we wrapped up all of the questions that have come in. Oh, yep, actually one more just has come in. The attendee is asking if they're improving land, is there an amount that they have to improve it by?
I think it's 30%.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure on that, but I think it's 30%. So if you build, shops or buildings or feedlots or anything like that, there's an accountant would have to determine that for you, but I believe it's 30%.
Okay, thank you. It looks like that's all the questions that we have. So yeah, if you have any more information you'd like to share with us, Bob, feel free to go ahead.
There are a lot of resources out there that one of them, NAR has a site on it that goes to Novogradic, which is a company that does a lot of tax work and has sites. You can go on their sites and you can look up any type of fund you're looking for, whether they're trying to do ag specific investments or multifamily or affordable housing or philanthropy or whatever. They've got all these different ones that have money to spend, that if you're looking for something to do, and as I've told everybody who are speaking across America, just if you've got a question, call me. I'll hook you up with somebody that's doing whatever you're doing, because I've met people all across the country that have many different things, and people from Atlanta and Texas and California and all different places have sent me stuff and said, what do you think? And I try to put them in touch with other people that are doing these things. It's really an opportunity if you just think different from what you're doing every day. So I encourage you to look at it. If you want to call me or email me or text me, you can do that. I'll be glad to help you, try to answer your questions or try to put you in the right place. But there is some real opportunity here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bob, for sharing with us your insight and experience. I know you have been working hard to make sure realtors across the country are aware of the possibilities with opportunity zones. Thank you again for sharing this with us today.